In this lesson, we'll focus on drawing the eye from a three-quarter view. So in the previous lesson, we drew the eye from the side view, and we basically took this opportunity to show you what the cornea looks like as it sits on top of the iris on the eyeball here. And so it's just that transparent mound, if you will, that usually you'll get a little bit of reflection on there. Like if you've ever taken a photo of someone, you'll see kind of a little specular highlight, one or two on there, and sometimes even a reflection of something else that is in that person's surroundings. So it's just that transparent, which you could almost think of almost like a contact lens that picks up a little bit of reflection there. So now we want to draw the eye from a three-quarter view. So if we go back to our eyeball, again, just kind of thinking about the iris and the pupil and how that eyeball rotates, that circular form of the iris and the eyeball, or the iris and the pupil, is going to appear more oval, okay? So you want to keep that in mind, okay? So go ahead and take those back to where they were there. Okay, so we've got a new layer here basically titled I/3/4 or 3/4. And we'll go ahead and just start off by, this time, instead of drawing a spherical shape, a circular shape for the entire sclera, we'll take this from more of the approach of thinking about just what the eye looks like as you would see it just by looking at a person. So again, thinking of that almond shape, okay? So if we go back to our front view here, we have that almond shape. It's not perfectly symmetrical, again, but it's kind of almond looking in its appearance. So right now we're seeing everything kind of head on. So in this case, we want to think of that almond shape as being more kind of skewed. So I'm drawing it from a three-quarter view, and I want to think of it from the standpoint of maybe we're seeing the outer corner of the eye being closer to us and the tear duct being further away from us. Okay, so we're going to be seeing this area, the outer corner closer to us, the tear duct further away from us as we draw this. So we're going to be dealing now with the element of perspective. Okay, so as I draw the upper and lower lids, I'm thinking about how the side that's further away from us, where we get into the tear duct, how that's going to be a little bit more skewed. So we'll probably see just a little bit of the tear duct again, just kind of more from a skewed angle. Okay. And while I do this, I'm reflecting back to when we drew the eye from the front view, how I constructed the upper and lower lids. Again, I think of the upper lid as those three different planes, the lower lid as those two different planes. And so as I sketch this out, I'm thinking of that in my mind. So if you're still struggling with that, go back to our third lesson where we draw the eyelids from the front view, because now I'm thinking of that, but now in the context of applying some perspective. Okay. So as we do this, I'm thinking about where I'm going to place the iris and the pupil. So imagine that we ourselves have moved around to the side of a person's face at a more of a three-quarter positioning. And so instead of seeing that iris dead on, it's not going to look perfectly circular. It's going to be more kind of oval-like. I'm going to make that just a little bit bigger. Also thinking about drawing this eye from a more relaxed pose. So it's kind of covering slightly the upper part of that iris. And then we'll have the pupil kind of right in here, right about there. And again, you want to think about the thickness of the upper and lower lids. So again, they're not thin, transparent sheets of paper. There's thickness to them. And even over here on this side, we're going to see more information over here. Again, going back to our front view, we're going to see a little bit more information over here in this area now. So just kind of thinking about kind of what that looks like as well. And I'll kind of thicken that area right there. Just kind of thinking about the thickness and it being in shadow. Okay, so if we're looking at it from a three-quarter view and we're thinking about the outer corner as being closer to us, naturally we're going to see more of the white of the eye. Now again, Don't think of this as being solid white. We're going to talk more about this in the following lesson once we get into actually shading the eye. We're going to go back to the front view and shade it. You want to think about that gradation that you would have, okay? So it would start to be a little bit more gray and less as you get closer to the iris. So just kind of roughly trying to iterate that right there. And again, thinking about, you're going to have kind of a line down here to kind of allude to the kind of the pouch that you have that is the lower eyelid, and then you're going to have another line up here at the top kind of complementing what we have right here coming over for the upper eyelid. Again, the upper eyelid sticks out further than the lower eyelid, and it's also more movable as well. Okay? And let me go ahead just to kind of put this more into context as to how we're viewing this three-quarter eye. We would probably have the eyebrow kind of right there. I'm just kind of roughing that in where I'm kind of thinking about it. And so in our next lesson, when we start getting into shading the eye, we're going to really start thinking about the form, the tissue around the eye. As you get kind of over here in this area, as you're getting closer to the bridge of the nose, you kind of have a recess over here. So this area over here would be a little bit darker, whereas over here, kind of on the outer area, as you get closer to the outer corner of the eye, above that, this outer area up here, it's going to be more fleshy, and it's going to kind of be a little more protruding outward than you would have over here in this area. Okay, so we'll talk more about that in our next lesson. We're going to go back to the front view of our eye, and we're just going to start shading it in grayscale and talking about just how we can represent this eye even more three-dimensionally. So stick around, and we'll continue on in our next lesson.